Once again, it is 4 in the morning and I am wearing llama pajamas.
Beep, boop, ba-doop, ba-doo, ba-doop, boop.
We're going to go back to my Fiction Press profile to a story that I posted in 2004. I was something like 14-ish. I haven't reread this in a very long time. No one else ever read it either. It has 6 reviews, and I think most of them are from my high school best friend, who, in her words, this is better than any movie. She was very supportive. This is not actually the first novella-length story that I've ever written and posted on the internet. I actually used to write for the Neopian Times when I was like 10, and I had a few stories published in there that were like weekly serialized stories. But those are just adorable because it's like a 10-year-old writing about Neopets. This is 14-year-old me attempting to write an epic romance. So, Chapter 4, Topside. That day was the day of the sacred hour, which means that we went topside. Lace was his usual silent self, sometimes talking about little things, sometimes just watching his feet as he walked. I tried that once, walked around the entire bunker staring at my toes like he did. It's rather relaxing. But that's beside the point. We went topside, everything perfectly timed. I got the same rush I always did when going topside. They take us up to the first floor, aka the floor closest to the surface. Our floors run backwards because we count from the surface down. Thanks, author, for that information. And to a small supply room. The looters grab bags, and the keepers grab hoes, rakes, shovels, etc. 1 minute before the sacred hour, one of the bunker's heads stands in front of the ladder that leads up to the hatch that leads to the surface, and counts off the seconds. 59, 58, 57. Lace? I took a step closer to him. Ever since the night before, he didn't seem different, but I felt different around him. Well, what did I expect? He told me he was gonna die for me. Do you think I could talk to you when we get up there? 52, 51, 50, 49. This person does this for a solid minute? You don't want to just, count by fives or something? I guess so. He shifted uncomfortably from one foot to the other. But if it's about last night, I don't think I have much to say. I just want to talk to you. I tried to smile, but the fear in his eyes stopped me from anything but awkwardness. He would look anywhere but at me. It was evident that he was noticing how close I was standing, and it was making him nervous. 43. Can't you tell me here? He asked. No. We were completely silent. It wasn't against the rules to talk during the final minute, but most of us didn't. Except for you, like right now. It was scary hearing every second be ticked off like that. There was always an electricity in the air. You almost wanted to hold your breath. For a solid minute. 1, 0. Okay, people, you have exactly 60 minutes. Hurry. We lined up single file in front of the ladder. The hatch opened slowly by machine, and one by one we stepped onto the surface. My section of the world above was a small row of miniature corn plants that went all the way around the inside of a hedge that bordered a large mansion. The corn had been genetically altered so that it would produce a full ear of corn, but never grow higher than 2 feet off the ground.
Aw, it's cute.
I was rather mad, finding that 4 of my plants had been uprooted. I looked over these plants like they were my children. In a way, they were. I planted them, I watered them, I looked over them, I loved them. I heard a rustling on the other side of the hedges and immediately stood up. Lace stood up at the exact same time. Goodness, you scared me, I said. Sorry. He stepped over the hedge, or at least tried to. He ended up toppling over it and barely missing my corn plants by a few inches. I burst into fits of giggles. Oh, you think that's funny, do you? He grabbed my hand and pulled me down beside him. We both laughed, completely ignoring whatever we were supposed to do. This is why you don't send teenagers out to do your, secret sneaky mission. The bunker heads always press us about not having much time, but we could all do our jobs in under 15 minutes. The rest of the time is spent just playing around. We were some of the lucky few who got to actually see blue skies and green grass. There was no way we were going to spend the entire time working. Again, this is why you don't send teenagers out to do your sneaky bidding. So what do you want to talk to me about? The laughing stopped. I stood up and walked over to a huge tree. I crawled into its protective branches and said, "Did you really mean all that stuff you said last night?" So before you continue this emotional conversation, you had to crawl into a tree and then what, shout down at him from the branches? He sat up and started pulling blades of grass out of the ground. I don't know. I sighed. I'm not trying to get you to explain it or anything. I just wanted to know if you really meant it. There was silence. Well, did you? He tore at the grass with fury. I don't lie about my feelings. I chuckled coldly. How do you chuckle coldly? I chuckled coldly. That's because you don't have any. Wow, you're a bitch. I take back any time I had ever said something was silent. I did not know the meaning of silence until that very moment. It was like all sound died, like each of our souls had been murdered by the 6 words I had just spoken. I didn't mean that, I said after what seemed like 1,000 deaths later. Calm the fuck down. Yes, you did. His voice was quiet and weak and made me want to go back in time just a few minutes. Could that be too hard? Just a few minutes. Surely nobody would mind that. No, I didn't. You have feelings. You just don't express them, I guess. He looked at me for the first time all day. How can you be sure? I slipped down from the tree and sat down in front of him in a pile of uprooted grass. Because everybody has feelings. Not me. His eyes clouded over with something. Hurt or fear or doubt or remembrance or sadness. I really wasn't sure. They slowly faded from me to the grass that surrounded him. He sighed. Well, maybe I feel on occasion. I laughed. Of course you do. You had to have been feeling to... I stopped. Frozen. I sat up straight as I looked back towards the hatch. Lace sprang up like a lightning bolt and said breathlessly, That could not have been an hour. Oh no! Dun dun dun! However will they get back home? So they're having this weird-ass conversation about how, like, he doesn't have emotions while she's describing all of these emotions flickering in his face. Like, okay, I'm gonna read this last chapter, and then I am either going to change a shirt and pretend that it's a new video, or I'm gonna stop and go to bed, because it's 4:30 in the morning. Chapter 5 is called Fairies. We watched the hatch close. It was like the swift hand of death. Hadn't they sent someone to find us? Hadn't they realized we weren't there? Why did they just close it on us? I was horrified. Oh my gosh, Lise, what do we do? Whatever cruel words had been spoken were immediately forgiven and forgotten. We both took a step towards each other, 2 helpless groundlings who had never been topside outside of the sacred hour. Hide? Maybe we can hide somewhere until they open the hatch again. A week? How on earth are we going to hide for a week? I don't know. He panicked. I felt bad. It's okay, we'll try. I looked towards the huge building at the front of the city. Crap, they're coming! He turned to see tons of people pouring out of the building. Where do we hide? I pointed to the hedge. It's hollow. I hid in it with Jankry once. We dove for the bush, sitting inside the branches, our backs against each other. I heard people walking around us, and I held back tears of fear. The punishment for rebelling against the government, each and every groundling could be legally charged with this, is death, or torture, or worse. That's how it was always illustrated to us. Death, or torture, or worse. I used to wonder what could be worse than torture. Lee slipped his hands into mine. It'll be okay. I'm here. For some reason that reassured me more than it should have. We tried to breathe as softly as possible as we heard people walking around us. It was getting late. The people all went to their houses. Then it wasn't just getting late, it was late. The sun was gone and it got really cold. In the bunker, it's constant warmth because we can control the heat. I wasn't used to anything below maybe 60 degrees on a bad day. I started to shiver. I tried to find things to keep my mind off the cold, such as trying to figure out how long we've been there. I figured it was roughly a few hours. Nobody was awake now. They were all sleeping. Nobody moved in the city. So why don't you, get out of the bush and, go find shelter? Are you cold? I heard a voice behind me. I stood perfectly still before I remembered Lace was behind me. Yes, I said, trying to keep my teeth from chattering. He moved around in the bush and suddenly a jacket appeared. I took it and slipped my arms into the warm sleeves. Thank you, I whispered. You don't even think about the fact that now he is jacketless? Somehow we managed to fall asleep leaning against each other's backs. I woke up to the rudeness of moist earth soaking through my clothes. Semicolon? Okay. Dry, cracked lips, semicolon. Branches poking and prodding at me, semicolon. Okay, calm down, you're doing this a little bit too much. And strange people moving and talking around me. Okay, I have to say, 14-year-old me, I woke up to the rudeness of moist earth soaking through my clothes. That's a decent sentence. I immediately clutched Lace's hand again. He turned his head slightly so I'd know he was awake. We couldn't make a sound. There were people on the mansion side of the hedge. One of them, an older man, was snipping away at the hedge with a pair of pruning shears. What is this? He stepped on one of my corn plants. I winced. Oh, don't step on it. They're tiny plants. The fairies plant them. I peered through the leaves at a tiny girl with dark curls sitting in a lacy white dress on a checkered blanket, having a fake picnic with a doll that looked just like her. The fairies, Maria? He tried to suppress a laugh.
Yes, I never see them. I just see the tiny plants that they plant around the house.
The old gardener paused in thought. We all knew what was going through his mind. Groundlings were often caught planting plants on the surface. The little girl's fairies were us. He was starting to figure that out. While deeply engrossed in thought, he managed to neglect where he was cutting and cut a gaping hole in the hedge right above Lace's head. He cursed at his mistake, then took a double look at what was in the hedge. What on earth? What are you kids doing in there? Come on out! Yeah, exactly. You just look like random-ass teenagers. You could just wander about. No one would care. Me and Lace slowly crawled out from that hedge, not speaking or being able to think clearly. I know I was shaking and kept trying to tell myself I was going to wake up any minute. Open your eyes, Veky. Open your eyes. Come on. What are your names? I'm going to have to speak with your parents, scaring innocent people like that. I'm Lace, and this is Veky. My blood froze at the sound of his words. Suddenly it dawned on me. The one easy-as-pie way to tell a groundling from a topsider. Their names. Jeremy. Maria, such ordinary, simple names. Veky, Lace, Arced, Jankry, such weird, complex sci-fi thriller names. Shouldn't it seem normal to her? The gardener's left eyebrow shot up. Is this some sort of sick, twisted game? He stared at our clothes. I was wearing a dirty, cream-colored square cloth shirt and gray pants, with a keeper's pair of working boots. Lace's black jacket was on my shoulders. I didn't dare look at Lace to see what he was wearing. I knew very well it was just as bad as my clothes. We might as well have worn hats that said, "Arrest us now!" Since neither of us spoke, the gardener realized that his suspicions were correct. He grinned coldly and grabbed a walkie-talkie from his belt. Hey, Tabitha, we got ourselves 2 groundlings out here.
2 what?
Maria stood up and stared at us curiously. Lace took my hand and swallowed hard as I rested my forehead on his shoulder and sobbed. They're fairies, the gardener laughed with no warmth in his smile. 2 fairies who didn't make it back home on time. The story is like part dramatic, post-apocalyptic, action-y thing, and then just like random stupid middle school bullshit. I feel like the story is picking up. Like, the beginning was like, what are you doing? But now, like, there's, like, momentum. There's, like, danger and plot happening. I should stop, but I don't want to. But I'm going to. Tune in next time to find out what happens to Veky and Lace. Why is his name Lace? What will happen to Veky and Lace now that they have been discovered topside by the evil government group of vague, nefarious schemes? Will they ever find out if Lace can actually feel things, even though emotions flicker on his face constantly? Will Veky ever brush her hair again and be transformed into something beautiful? Will their parents ever show up? Where are their parents? Probably like, oh, whatever. I mean, they're always sneaking out at night. They're probably just sleeping with each other. Again. Tune in next time for more of this garbage.